Welcome, seekers of heartbeats and hidden truths, to a new exclusive chapter on Turkish Spotlight Secrets, the corner of the internet where the glitter fades and the feelings beneath it take center stage. Before we open the door to tonight's story, make sure you're subscribed, tap like, and if you want to stand even closer to our fire, hit that join button and become part of our inner circle. Take a breath and settle in, because what we're about to share brushes against scars and hope at once. An intimate moment few were meant to hear, and yet it changes everything for those who have been watching from the shadows. It began far from red carpets and television studios, in a quiet living room lit by warm lamps and easy laughter. Friends gathered for a simple night in, the kind of evening where music hums low and secrets feel safe. The clink of glasses, the rustle of conversation, the soft grin that comes with being off duty. No one there could have known the atmosphere would shift in an instant, that the air would turn dense with something fragile and unspoken. On one side of the room, with the posture of a man who had walked a long day inside his own mind, sat Yaman. He wasn't performing. He wasn't projecting. He was just being, a little worn, a little quiet, and honest in the way people are when they think the night will keep their words safe. And then he said the kind of sentence that changes the shape of the evening: "I'm not sure I'll ever see her again, and that thought unnerves me more than I can put into words." Silence fell as if the walls themselves had lowered their eyelids. The lamp still glowed, the playlist still drifted from a corner speaker, but the room stilled. From that moment on, every stray remark bent toward the same name, every soft aside circled the same gravity. Demet Özdemir. Not as a headline, not as a rumor, but as a presence that returned because sincerity had called it back. Someone offered him water, someone else shifted closer, and Can, emboldened by having spoken aloud what he had kept caged, let another piece slip through. He admitted that there had always been a rare charge between them, that elusive blend of comfort and electricity, and that he had never dared say it at the hour it mattered most. His hands toyed with the empty rim of a glass, fingertips tracing the invisible path of a truth that had remained unsent. Those who had watched them closely for months, on set, backstage, the quiet corridors between scenes, knew their rapport was never just a souvenir from a project. During long nights and early mornings, there were gestures that said more than a press release ever could. Demet would peek in with a small snack when she sensed his energy flagging, a little sweetness smuggled into a grueling day. Ken would run gentle interference when he saw her protecting a delicate mood, easing away chatter so she could breathe. It wasn't theatrical, it was human. And then came their separation, called amicable in the official language of public life, tidy and grown-up and uncomplicated, or so the outside world was told. Neither of them had confessed anything raw since then. Not until that night. By dawn, the world had moved on to routines and headlines, but Demet left a quiet sign for anyone who knew how to read her. On Instagram, she posted a muted photograph, soft as morning, paired with a line that felt like a pulse returning: "Some souls don't disappear, they learn to dwell in quiet." No names, no tags, no fireworks. Just a sentence that, to the initiated, was not a mystery at all. The internet does not wait to be invited. In minutes, comment sections glowed like embers, and the wave rolled from Instagram to X to TikTok. It's about him. This story never ended, don't tell me otherwise. You can hear the echo in every word. Clips resurfaced, interviews were rewatched with new ears, and timelines filled with side-by-side moments that suddenly felt like dots on a map leading back to each other. Then came a report from a respected entertainment journalist, someone who has seen enough rehearsals and reconciliations to distinguish fantasy from fact. According to the journalist, Can and Demet had been speaking again in recent weeks. Not constantly. Not with cinematic flourishes. Just quiet exchanges that revealed wounds still tender and feelings that hadn't found their final form. His confession didn't come from nowhere, the journalist said on a podcast. That was a man caught between remorse and hope. You don't talk like that if everything inside you is truly over. A friend close to Can, protective but aware that the truth would only become heavier if left unshared, revealed something few knew: Can had composed a long, unguarded letter to Demet. Not on paper, but in the notes on his phone, the place where people store words they're afraid to lose or unleash. It was the kind of message someone writes at 2 in the morning when the past is louder than sleep. One section admitted that he never wanted to step away, that he simply didn't know how to hold tight without pressing too hard. Another line, simple and aching, promised that if she ever turned around to look for him, she would still find him where she left him. And yet, the letter remained what so many confessions become: saved, reread, and never sent. Publicly, Demet kept a composure that felt almost like a meditation. No comments, no impulsive replies, no accidental likes to start a rumor wildfire. But people close to her noticed the small shifts, moments of drifting attention, that distant look she gets when she's replaying the soft edges of a memory. A dear friend confided that when something touches Demet deeply, she doesn't announce it. She becomes quieter, like a seaside just before dawn. And lately, she has been choosing silence the way one chooses a shelter. With attention spiking, fans became archivists. Old clips were dusted off, behind-the-scenes laughter was clipped into mini-movies, and 1,000 glances were slowed down until they looked like answers. They never lost their rhythm. This is what chemistry looks like, even without words. They are better together, that's the truth we can all see. An ordinary-seeming photograph added fuel. Demet, stepping out of a cafe, a book in her hand, One had publicly praised in an earlier interview. Was it coincidence, a pretty cover caught mid-errand? Or a quiet way of saying, I remember too? The most human turn in the story came from another source in Can's circle. He has reportedly begun therapy, a deliberate effort to understand why he retreats from what he values most when the stakes rise high. It's not glamorous, and it's not a headline most expect next to a famous name. But there it is, honest work, often invisible, meant to keep something precious from slipping through the same cracks a second time. He's facing rooms inside himself he avoided walking into for years, the friend said softly. It's hard. It hurts. But it's the kind of pain that makes space. And none of it would be happening if what he feels for Demet had burned out. Meanwhile, Demet's team maintained the kind of discreet distance that feels almost sacred. No nudges, no winks, no choreography. Yet even in that careful quiet, a small detail escaped. Someone on her staff mentioned that Demet had recently asked whether Can would be at upcoming industry events. She hasn't attended certain gatherings for months, but the question kept appearing like a note left on a desk. And when his name comes up, said the staffer, a particular smile arrives, the kind that tells a longer story than any caption. So where does that leave us? Not with a declaration, not with an ending, but with the electricity of something unfinished. The kind of feeling that sits in a paused breath, waiting for either a sigh or a promise. Perhaps this is the start of a return, of conversations that grow bolder than a note on a phone. Perhaps it's the ache of nostalgia, here now and gone when the season changes. No one can say yet, not even the people living inside the story. But here's what is clear, this is not over. Not for them, and not for the audience that has traced their constellations from the first spark. Tell us what your heart says. Is this the first page of a second chance, or a memory visiting for one last slow dance before it fades? Share your thoughts in the comments below, we read them, we feel them, and we carry them into the next chapter. And tell us too, which celebrity would you like us to explore next here on Turkish Spotlight Secrets? Your curiosity sets our compass. If you've stayed with us through this tender story, thank you. Before you go, remember to subscribe, tap like, and if you want to keep the lights on in this intimate space we share, click join and step inside the circle. We'll meet again in the next video, where the shine is lovely but the truth beneath it is the point. And keep this in mind, in show business, silence is never empty. It's a room where a story waits for someone brave enough to open the door. Back in that living room where it all began, you can imagine the music picking up again after the confession, the clatter of ice in a fresh glass, the way friends learn to carry a fragile moment with gentleness so it doesn't break. Someone cracked a joke to defuse the heaviness. Someone else checked the playlist, pretending to be casual while measuring the temperature of the night. Ken didn't say much after those admissions, he didn't need to. Sometimes when the truth has been spoken, you can only sit with it, and that's what he did, the kind of quiet that is not an ending but a beginning. And Demet, choosing her public calm and private reflection, let the world read her the way she wanted to be read, without spectacle, without noise. The subtle image, the careful phrase, the decisions that make up a woman who knows that when a feeling matters, it must be protected from the glare. She has learned how to keep something fragile safe while it figures out whether it wants to live in the light again. As for the letter, it still sits where he left it, words stacked behind a lock screen, a paragraph break marking the point where he could no longer find the nerve to continue. Maybe it will never be sent. Maybe it will be rewritten and read aloud in some sunlit room you and I will never see. Maybe the words will dissolve and return as a conversation, as a touch, as an apology folded into a laugh. Or maybe they will stay exactly as they are, a private artifact of a turning point that still hasn't decided which direction it wants to take. Fans will keep digging, because that's what devotion does. Every glance and pause will be studied not to invade, but to understand. Long before fame, people told stories around fires, trying to make sense of the storms inside the heart. Nothing has changed, except now the fire is a screen, and the village is a global chorus. In that chorus, their names keep echoing, Can and Demet, carried by the hope that what once felt rare and genuine might still have a path. So if you cross paths with a quiet post in the morning or a book slipping from one hand to a bag at a cafe, if you hear a line in an interview that sounds like a door opening, remember this night and these words. Remember that the stories that last are not built on fireworks. They're built on small, intentional moments that refuse to be ordinary. And perhaps, just perhaps, this is one of them. You are watching Turkish Spotlight Secrets, where we linger long enough to hear the heartbeat under the headline. Subscribe, like, join if you wish, and come back soon. Because in a world that loves noise, we will always make room for the whisper that changes everything.